sure I'll taste a love as sweet as yours. I've been fooled a million times, but I'd be good if you were mine. Won't you teach me how to write a song, and I will sing ever long. We could be eternal stars. We'd learn to love right where we are. Oh, we could watch the sunrise, staring at the moon. We'd waste away the afternoon. We could be eternal stars. We'd learn to love right where we are. Oh, I've got to stay true to my heart. All that you do makes me crazy down in love. You make me feel young like a bird chasing the sun. Know that I will always love you. None about you. I'm so deep in love. La da 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 zee dee 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 day. La la da 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 da. Na, 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 na. Know that we don't have to worry about tomorrow. Thank you. Never felt so far from home. Guess I know I'm not alone. 'Cause I got pictures on my bedside when my memories collide. They kiss my mind. Thought I'd see you in the morning, 'cause in the night I heard you calling. And though it was only a dream, pulled my heart right out the seams. Oh, 'cause it made me realize that time is not your ally. Spend it wise. Oh, I was trying to I don't want to waste another moment wishing I could say, take me home one more time so I know that they know I'll dial your name today. Been so long since I called, but I'm gonna do it anyway. You've been on my brain way too long, we'll be gone. I'm too strong, but I wanna say, I love you.
How you doing? God bless y'all. Cal Weary. I have the honor of being this guy's dad. It's always hard to hear him sing his pretty songs and not cry a little bit. So I get a chance to play with him today. That's a blessing, especially to be here at our church, Action Church. We did all original songs for today because we didn't want the internet to shut us down. So this is one we wrote together. The first two are his. That's why they're so pretty. And now we'll put my old voice on this one. And I wish that I could see you all the time. But I just run around and lose my mind. The answers don't seem clear that I can find. And I just want to be alright. The question forever lies in fear that I can see. And people fall in love and just to dream. And we don't have the answers we can't see. I want much more from this life. Come on, come on. Take a ride across the stars. I promise we'll be home before the night even knows that we are gone. Tonight, tonight, oh tonight. And we haven't even seen a million dreams. The Lord has given us the honest means to walk along the world and swim the stream. Will you come with me tonight?
Good morning, Action Church. Hey, welcome to the live stream. I hope you enjoyed Cal and Eli Weary. I know I did. It's really nice to see live music back in the building, and thank you for them to them for doing that. Every week we're here live on Facebook, as well as live.actionchurch.com. That will continue from here on out. And we also rebroadcast on YouTube, anywhere you can get podcasts, and our app has the video and the audio formats every week. So, you might have heard this already, but next weekend, really, York County is going to be moved to green. And what that means for churches is that there's no more restrictions on church attendance. Of course, they want us to follow the CDC guidelines, all that stuff, and we will. But we're really excited to say next week will be reopened. I'm excited to say the house band's going to be playing. And of course, it'll be live streaming if you're still not feeling like you're ready to come back and be around other people. But those of you who are ready for that, we're really excited to welcome you back in the building and start doing church as a family again. We have, of course, next week will be reopened. We have another event. This is breaking news. We're going to do Father's Day the following week. We're going to do an outdoor breakfast. And so that'll be, weather permitting, obviously. If not, we'll move it inside. But just, the weather's supposed to be fantastic. And the, with social distancing, everything's a little easier outside. So we'll do it outside. And it'll be a lot of fun, and we can celebrate fathers. So we say it every week. Invite, invest, and get involved. Inviting's never been easier today because you can share the stream. And I'm sure there's other people who are probably desiring community, and if they would want to join us here, we would welcome them. I would say with open arms, but I don't think we're allowed to do that yet. We will welcome them with elbows or whatever we're allowed to do. Invest your money, invest your time. It's going to take some effort to get everything reopened. We had another great gathering here at 9:30 where we really just, honestly, we were supposed to be talking about reopen, but with everything that's going on in the country, we just kind of drilled down on the issues, but more so from the perspective of how is Action Church involved in that. And just if I can summarize, which I'll probably butcher it, but my summary is kind of like, hey, we don't want to be political, but it's pretty clear the things that we believe in. We believe in love God, we believe in loving people, and we believe in taking action. So, everybody gets to do that in their own individual way. And us as a church, we want to support you. We want to be a place of refuge for those who are hurting. We want to take care of each other. So that's the loose Action Church, not policy. And get and get involved. Again, we're reopened. Come on out. We're excited. We're excited to have you. We have, we need a clean surfaces. We need to do all the things it takes to get reopened. Oh, and I should mention, next week it'll be a family service. No kids' rooms or anything like that will be open just yet. So, that's the last thing. So, in closing, again, I just, in the time it takes for Don to walk up here, I just want to, say, we're aware of what's going on in the country. Our heart breaks for injustice. Our heart breaks for people who are hurting, whether it's because of the color of their skin, because their business has been affected by not just what's happening now, but this whole thing. Action Church wants to just be for all people. So, Pastor Don.
And if you would have been here at 9:30, you could have heard the in-depth behind the scenes of how the sausage is made. And that's one thing that's come out of this, and I just want to invite you to that. Even next week, we'll be gathering in here to worship as a family, but one thing I did see potential in, and it is opening up at 9:30 where we could have deeper conversations than what we're going to have of me just talking to you for 35 minutes on a Sunday morning. I guess it's 35 minutes. I'm like, it's so great to have music, to have Cal and Eli, and now I'm like, now I have to stick to a format. I better get to it. We got a brand new series, and I'm excited about it because we are going to give you a map to your happy place. Now, I don't know what your happy place is. I did do a quick Google search and I found The Happy Place. The Happy Place, it turns out, is in the Theater LA Arts District. Tickets are $28.95 for the base ticket plus fees. And if you'd like, here's the thing that struck me. It said, if you would like to get the deluxe package, which included an Instagram photographer, it's $199 a piece. So we know where the happy place is, and we know it costs $199 a piece. And as I was thinking, I was like, that is so America 2020. Oh, and by the way, there is a location. It said opening in Philly at the King of Prussia Mall. I don't know if the happy place is open in Philly or not right now. Your mileage may vary. Before you take a drive there, I'd probably call. But we do know where the happy place is, and we do know it costs $199.99 a person. And I was thinking about that. I was like, actually, that's so American and so 2020, because what it really is, if you look at all the pictures of it, it's sort of places to look happy, right? Like it's the room filled with yellow flowers, or pictures in the yellow VW bus with the smiley face on the front, or those kids are not that excited about jumping in the ball pit. Trust me, I've seen kids at Chuck E. Cheese and they're angry. They're like little weasels. They're scary. But these kids are with their Instagram photographer, or they're just having the time of their life jumping into the ball pit or the giant chocolate chip cookie. But we're pretty good at knowing how to sell looking happy in America. But I want to talk to you about, like, where's your happy place really? Now, here's the thing I find about your happy place. It's different than mine. But I was thinking, like, where am I happy? I'm sort of a robot. Like, where am I happy? And I realized something, like, and this is, I'm going to sound like such an old man. I don't care, because I know, like, if you watch the Goldbergs or any old TV, every old man gets a chair. And I realized, like, oh, you have a chair. I do have a chair. And that might be my happy place, because I realized, like, after working all day, I usually work, my dad used to call it half days. He was a farmer. I work 12 plus hours a day, you know, when I'm painting. I'm a painting contracting business. So I come home and I'm tired, and Michelle's always got something yummy for me to eat. And so I scarf down like enough food for a family of 4. And then Reagan will usually help me do something useful, like working out or something. But then after all that is done, I go to my happy place, and I sit on my reclining chair on part of a sectional, and I push the button and I lay back. And in the winter, I turn the fireplace on. In the summer, there's a fan above it. And I turn on the TV, but that doesn't even really sort of matter. Or sometimes I'll read, but mostly I'll turn on the TV. And because I didn't realize, my family realized I'm deaf. So it turned out I would have the TV on like 85, which is apparently loud. Doesn't sound loud to me. I got some headphones, so I put the wireless headphones on so it's not so loud for everyone else. And I lay back in that chair, and it is blissful for the 2 minutes I'm awake. But and then they wake me back up, and then but I was thinking, like, that's probably what I would say. Like, at the end of my day, that feels happy. Like, just sitting down after a long day's work. But I realized something, like, it's really not. Because I can still remember back in March when my son called me. It was so weird, and I don't know if you remember it, but when they first did the shutdown of the whatever non-essential businesses are, we're finding out they were all essential. Look at my hair. But the non-essential businesses were shut down, and I honestly wasn't paying a lot of attention at that point. And my son called me, and I was still at work, but everything was closed. It was after everything was closed, and he said, "Are we going to be able to work?" He said, "They just shut down construction." And so I went home that night, and thankfully it turned out the type of painting I do, I was able to stay working, but I didn't know that night. And that night I sat down in my happy place, not knowing if I was going to be able to pay the bills or provide for my family, and all of a sudden it wasn't so happy. So I realized like what I thought was my happy place really was not the comfy chair, even though it is lovely. And it wasn't the fan or the fireplace, or I forgot to mention, sometimes I eat a snack. Okay, all the time I eat a snack when I'm in my happy place. In fact, this is a recipe you can try at home. The other day I got a half-gallon of ice cream, and I dug a hole in it with a fork, and I filled that with chocolate syrup. And then I dipped pieces of ice cream in it. That's my recipe. You try it at home. So sometimes it was messy, though. I looked like a baby when I got up from that. But anyway, while reclining. But anyway, it's like my happy place that's sad. My happy place really wasn't my happy place. What it was is I realized like, oh, I feel accomplishment and I feel good if I've had a long day's work and I can rest. And I think that's a God thing. Like that's something God's put in us. He rested on the sixth day of creation. And I realized like, oh, without the work, I was sort of looking at like without a job, I could sit in my happy place for 3 to 6 weeks, maybe longer. And I don't think it'll be that happy anymore. And so I want to give you some thoughts, some happy thoughts from, I think, the gloomiest book in the Bible. Because the thing is, happiness is fleeting. Just like I would tell you, oh, if I sit down on my couch, I'm happy. Oh, no, I'm not. Not if I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to work the next morning. I'm not so happy at all. And if I would have sat there for 6 weeks and watched Netflix, I would have been very unhappy in my happy place. But it made me think, like, how can some people be in the same circumstances be so much happier than others? So I went to the book, I think it, the wisest guy on the planet. But it's also the gloomiest book. And so I'm surprised at what I found about happiness in Ecclesiastes. So let me start with a little not so happy portion of Ecclesiastes, because I want you to realize, like, if you haven't read this book, and I hope this month you'll just read Ecclesiastes. It's fantastic, I think. It's my favorite book of the Bible, which will probably make you worry about me. But it is my favorite book of the Bible, but it's not known for its cheerful thoughts. Like, he wasn't a guy who put out like Instagram quotes that were super happy. So let me just give you a sample. These are the words, this is how the book starts. These are the words of teacher, King David's son, Solomon, who ruled in Jerusalem. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher. Like, here's the richest, most popular, wisest guy in the world, makes Elon Musk look like a slacker if you see what he built in his time. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. What do people get for all their hard work under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth never changes. The sun rises and the sun sets. Then it hurries around to rise again. The wind blows south, then turns north. Around and around it goes, blowing in circles. Rivers run into the sea, but the sea is never full. Then the water returns again to the rivers and flows out again. He understood the water cycle. We learned it in 6th grade, but Solomon knew it 6,000 years ago. Everything is wearisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we're never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. History merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, here is something new, but actually it is old. Nothing is ever truly new. We don't remember what happened in the past, and this is his final happy thought. In future generations, no one will remember what we're doing now. Now, I think that's completely true, even though a little gloomy, right? Isn't it shocking that he understood that then? I'm not talking about the water cycle. He was a smart guy. But I was doing some reading this week. I was born in 1968, and I don't know, I just came across something that said, do you realize how much this summer is like the summer of 68? And I was like, no, I do not, because I wasn't born yet. I was born in August of 68. But if you read about 1968, which I was almost alive for, I was in my mother's belly, it sounds a lot like right now, but none of us know that. Like, there was a pandemic in the summer of 68. Who knew? The Hong Kong flu. More people died from the Hong Kong flu than have died of COVID-19 so far. Crazy. Woodstock was in the middle of that. Apparently, our parents were crazy because in the middle of their pandemic, they went and like tongue-kissed a stranger at Woodstock. That's what happened with them. So it's like there were riots. There were killings. It was just incredible. I was reading about the summer of '68, and I was like, oh my goodness, it sounds like the summer of 2020 in so many ways. And it was an election year. It was like everything sounds so parallel, and it's like, oh, but we don't remember that at all. It's like we think we're sort of going through this for the first time, and it's so interesting. I was like, oh, the teacher was right. Like history and people say, and I forgot who said this, but it's so wise. It says like history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly does rhyme. It does. It's like it's not going in circles necessarily, but there is nothing new. And so I was thinking about that, like sort of how wise beyond time Solomon was. And if you want to know his origin story, you ought to check out First Kings, because the story, I won't read it to you, but the story's pretty interesting because it says that God came to Solomon, son of David, and he says, your dad has been a man after my own heart, which if you look at the story of David, you realize, wow, God likes some messed up people, and that makes me feel better about my life. But he came to Solomon and he said, Solomon, your father has pleased me, so I want to give you a gift. And Solomon came back to him, and he could have asked him for riches, or he could have asked him to live forever. He could have asked him, you're talking to God, like, what is your wish? And he could have asked him to be the most powerful king. And instead he said, I need wisdom. I need wisdom because I don't know how to lead my people. And God was so pleased with that. I love this about God. God was so pleased with that. He was like, you asked for the right thing, and because of that, he told him, you're going to get wisdom. You're going to be the wisest person who ever lived. But also, you're going to get wealth beyond belief, and you're going to get, you're going to be the most powerful ruler. I mean, he had more, he had more gold, they said, in his private residence and temple than the rest of the world had. I mean, his wealth was just incredible, and God allowed all those things to happen. And so I think of anyone I could go to, of anyone that had, literally like supernatural wisdom and an understanding of history, that first passage I read to you, it still makes sense today. Let's not forget, we're talking about sort of not medieval times, thousands of years before medieval times. So I want to read, and we got 4 of these. I found 4 of these in Ecclesiastes. So every week there'll be a different thought from Solomon about happiness. And I want to read the first one, and don't be, I hate when I give disclaimers, but don't be underwhelmed, because there's more to it than it seems, because it's this. Solomon said these words. He said, I know that there's nothing better for people than to be happy and do good while they live. Now, I know you're like, good, be happy. I've heard a song about that. It was really annoying. It's like, I get that, but I want you to think about it. He's saying and this is important, there's nothing better than for people to be happy. That's important, right? Because it doesn't always feel like that, right? Like some parts of life, and in fact, if you would have read, like I did just a few minutes ago, the first thing he says in his sort of, I'm thinking like in the book of Ecclesiastes is like sort of listening to Solomon's podcast. It's like his inner thoughts, only he actually wrote them down. But in the midst of all of his understanding of how history repeats itself, and people really like work and work and work, and then they die, and nobody remembers what they did before, and you think you're amazing, but nobody's going to remember you, and like he didn't turn to nihilism. He said, there's nothing more important than being happy, and that's sort of a big deal. You're like, thank you, Solomon. Like, let's get the jet skis and the champagne, and thank you for wearing a shirt, DJ Khaled, and this is 2 weeks in a row. I'm sorry. But, like, it seems sort of like that is awesome, and it is. But he didn't just say be happy. He said be happy and do good. And it seems so simple when I first read it. I almost didn't use this verse because I was like, it's kind of thin there, Solomon. good to be happy. Yeah, all right. Well, I'm glad of that because it's good to hear that God would want us to be happy. But the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, this is very difficult. And this is very interesting because he said, be happy and do good. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a very good person. So that almost feels like, oh, well, I like the happy part, but the doing good part might actually make me not so happy, right? Right? Like, it made me feel like, oh, I can be happy. That's awesome. Bring the jet skis and the champagne, but I got to be good too. I mean, come on. Like, that seems like that's going to put a big dent in my happiness, but I've been thinking a lot, and I've got a theory. I think happiness and healthiness are a lot alike because they're very individual. They really are, but they're real. There's real happiness that people have, and it's not the same for everyone. And it's like weird because people aren't happy about the same things, but yet when you see someone and you meet someone that's truly happy in all circumstances, you go, oh, that's something. It's a real thing. They're not just faking it. But it's kind of like healthiness. And the fact that there are real sort of elements, there's sort of a recipe for healthiness, just like there's a recipe or a roadmap to happiness, but it's not the same for everyone, but it is a thing, right? Because I was thinking, like, the thing about happiness and healthiness is that both of them involve appetites. Like, we have appetites that are within us, they're baked in from God. And on one hand, they're extremely healthy and they're extremely normal, but they can lead us to like extremely unhealthy and extremely abnormal behaviors and make us very unhappy. And I was thinking like, oh, I think that's the same. I think they have a lot of elements that are the same. Like being happy, we have appetites for happiness within us. Things that make us happy, like when I say I feel happy when I have accomplished something and I get to rest, that just feels happy for me. Or when I see, my daughter do something that I'm proud of, I'm like, oh, that makes me happy. And that's a natural dad happiness. Natural, and then there's like pleasure happy. Like I was happy when I discovered that you could dig a hole in a half-gallon of ice cream and put chocolate syrup in it and make a giant sundae. That made me happy. But that was also unhealthy, apparently, according to the Surgeon General. Oh, yeah. Not, who's going to listen to him? Anyway, I realized like, oh, there's a lot of, and we're going to talk about that this month, there's a lot of sort of parallels between happy and healthy. Like they're both a thing. Like someone can be really happy. That's true. And you can actually be a healthy person. But it gets really, really difficult when I start going, here's how you be healthy. This is what you do. This is how you eat. Because actually it's weird. Like you realize people have to eat different things to be healthy due to different metabolism and different body types. So that guy who's like, you should only eat meat. Maybe. And the other guy's like, no, you should only eat vegetables. Maybe. Or no, you should only eat carbs. I hope so. That would be awesome. Like you should. But here's the thing. Like we realize, and wise people go, oh, you know what? It's possible that person's healthy and they don't exercise like me or eat like me. But it's also true. That doesn't mean anything goes. Because eating unhealthy does catch up to you. And so here's another thing I realized about appetites, and I was thinking like, oh, we're going to have to work on this in our happiness, because here's the thing about appetites that lead us to happiness and appetites that lead us to healthiness. Like, they really can't be fully satisfied, can they? Like, you can never have enough ice cream or Oreos. Like, you can never, ever, you might get, we call it aversion therapy at our house. Like you have pancake aversion therapy. You just eat all the pancakes you can until you go, I'll never eat pancakes again. That doesn't even last. Like I've said that like 5,000 times. It'll last for about 3 weeks. But here's the thing, like we have these appetites within us, and the appetites for power and appetites for love and appetites for sex and appetites that are natural, normal appetites. And whoo, can they lead us to some really unhealthy things. So they can't be satisfied. They're never satisfied. You will never get enough of any of those things, but they can be modified. Like, you can work yourself in place in your diet that you actually like healthy food. It's tough. I'm not there right now. Thanks, COVID. But like, I've had points in my life where I actually craved healthy food. I think my daughter's saying you're a liar, but I swear I have at one point in my life. But you can do it. I know you can't. But here's the thing. They can be modified. Like, people can modify their appetites, and people can modify their appetites for happiness. And if I was a better preacher, I would have really said that in a way that rhymed. That would have been awesome. But here's the thing. Let's just substitute healthy in the verse. I know. What if Solomon said this? I know that there's nothing better than for people to be healthy and eat good. I put food in there while they live. And you would go, yeah, that sounds fairly reasonable, right? Like, it sounds fairly reasonable to say, yeah, being healthy is great. I mean, we learned that from this pandemic. Like, you being healthy may have saved your life, or definitely made it easier, even if you caught it. We know a few people that caught it, that you recovered. So we would all go, yeah, that makes sense. But what if both are true? I was thinking, what if in the same way that you would have to eat good, and I know that's terrible grammar, but to be healthy, you would eat good. Maybe what Solomon was saying, and what I started thinking, is maybe he was saying there's nothing better in life than to be happy and do good. Just like it would say there's nothing better in life than to be healthy and eat good. They sort of are connected. In fact, they are connected. That what Solomon was saying is to be truly happy, not only could you do good and still be happy. He's saying, no. Because that's what I first read. I was like, oh, I guess you could still be happy if you did good. But he said, no. In the end, there's nothing better than if you're like eating well and being healthy and doing good and being happy. And so that's what I thought we should think about this morning. Like, what would it be to be happy and do good? Now, here's the problem that we have to deal with. If we're going to talk about what it is to do good, we also have to talk about what bad is, right? And that's difficult. And it's the same thing with healthy and unhealthy food. And it's funny because I realized that I was like, oh, this is so touchy because I don't like people telling me what's unhealthy and healthy food, right? Don't you hate that? You know that's not healthy. Oh, really? I hate that. And here's the funny thing. You can go out and find someone who will say whatever you like is healthy. You really can. And here's the thing. You can't look to culture because guess what? Over time, culture has changed what is healthy, hasn't it? Right? Like, look at the food pyramid from the 1970s. It is hilarious. And you realize, like, later we're like, oh, farmers and like mass producers of food helped write the food pyramid. You know, it was the same time when they're going, 9 out of 10 surgeons say smoking Lucky Strikes is the healthiest solution for your life. You know, it's like we realize, and that's the thing, like we can look back and go, oh, the food pyramid was crazy at one point because even though culture was saying that, like I lived through the 90s when it was all like fat-free and SnackWells, and we're all like getting fatter and eating things that gave us diarrhea to stay. It was weird. Like it was all like, hey, don't eat fat, just eat carbs. I remember when I used to say like, oh, I guess I have to eat something healthy, so I'll eat some pasta tonight. You know, and now, not that pasta's unhealthy, but that was the worst thing I could eat. But that's what culture told me, and it's the same with what good is. I want to read you. Because here's the thing, you don't want to hear what I say is good. But I'm going to read to you what Paul said is unhappy and unhealthy. Because Paul was working in a place called Rome, and he was dealing with people that were coming from an unhappy, unhealthy, sinful life. And he said, here's the way you used to be. And Paul was pretty clean. But it won't be me saying, here's what's unhappy and unhealthy, because I don't get to decide. I don't get to decide what's unhappy and unhealthy, but here's what Paul said. He says, therefore, he's talking about these people. This is where you came from. He said, therefore, God gave them over to their sinful desires in their heart, like appetites, right? Like he's like, these are appetites. And then they became sinful. When he says sinful, he's going, these became unhealthy. These became ungood. That's a terrible way to say it. But like they're unhealthy, sinful versions of healthy appetites. So he gave their sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity for the degrading of their bodies with one another. And interestingly enough, you might go, oh, that's really million. Paul's talking about the Romans. No, he's writing this letter to Romans going, this is who you used to be. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and they worshiped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men abandoned natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. He's talking about this is a healthy appetite that becomes very unhealthy when it's pointed in the wrong direction. And they received in themselves the due penalty for their error. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they could do what ought not to be done. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness. And then he talks about their society. And I want you to think of this society. And Paul diagnosed it as unhealthy. And Solomon would have diagnosed it as unhappy. And I think they were right. Listen to this. It says they're gossips, slanderers. So they're talking about things they shouldn't be talking about. Tweeting about things that are nice about people. They're God haters. They're full of envy. They think everything that's not theirs should be theirs. Murder. We know what that is. We know what that looks like. How terrible that is. Strife, fighting, deceit. They're deceiving each other. They're lying. And malice. That just means, man, we are out to get others. We're out to harm others. They're insolent, they're arrogant, they're boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding, no fidelity. They don't stick with anything they say. No love, no mercy. That's what Paul is saying to this group and going, that is what you used to be, and that's really unhealthy. And Solomon would say that's also unhappy. Now, if that bothered you, I get it. None of us like to look and go, maybe the food pyramid is wrong, but it can free you. But here's what. Let me take you to a happy place that Paul said. And it's amazing because he said this, let no debt remain outstanding, so pay your debts, except you never get out of debt of love to one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. And notice what he does with this. You're going, oh, then he's going to tell me commandments, what I can't do. He's like, no. The commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and whatever other commands there may be are summed up in this one command. Love your neighbor as yourself. And then he does a mic drop that's so powerful because this could change everything about our world today. He said, love your neighbor as yourself because love does no harm to your neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. He's like, guess what? And this is so true. This could still work today. I'm amazed. I think it could still work. If you love people, you wouldn't harm them. You wouldn't put your knee on their neck. You wouldn't burn down their store. You wouldn't lie about them. You wouldn't lie to them. You wouldn't cheat on them. Like all the problems in our world. You wouldn't steal from them. You wouldn't try to oppress them. You can't oppress people you love. That's nonsense. Love does no harm. And then he said, if we just loved people, guess what? There probably wouldn't be any other laws. Now, here's how Paul puts it together in Galatians. And once again, I want you to realize, like, this is not just about Paul going, that's bad, that's bad. In fact, he's saying the opposite. He's like, you know what? You used to live like that, but everybody he's going to, he's going, here's a real different way of living. And you may have heard this, but I want you to think of this in the same sort of, because this is Paul giving his prescription for a happy place, for a healthy place to everybody he writes to. Notice he said that to Rome, he said that to Galatia, and no, this is to Galatia. He said it to the Thessalonians, which I can't pronounce. So he says this, so I say, walk by the Spirit and you'll not gratify the desires of the flesh. Isn't that interesting? He's saying, you know those appetites you have? The appetites that always send you in the wrong direction, even though they're God-given? He said, for the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. This is, you could modify your appetites where you actually desired good food. It's possible. And he's saying you could modify your appetites for actions and make it where you desire to do good things instead of evil, wrong, unhealthy ones. He says if you're led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. The acts of the flesh are obvious. And once again, he goes into it. It's going to make you really uncomfortable. But it's part of understanding that even though we might have grown up in the 70s and the food pyramid said there's nothing better than a big bowl of pasta, we can go, I'm following the food pyramid, but when we get into our 40s, we go, how come that's not working right? It's because it's wrong. Just because our culture says something is good doesn't mean it's good. Just because our culture says something is bad doesn't mean it's bad. We have to have some authority, and I'm just pointing you to go, oh, what if? The wisest people on the planet with the most insight gave us some insight into ways to live that are not just healthy, they're happy. He said they're obvious. There's sexual immorality and impurity and debauchery. I like that word. Idolatry and witchcraft, hatred, discord and jealousy and fits of rage, selfish ambition and dissensions and factions. Oh, that doesn't sound like anything I've ever heard of. What a weird world they had. Envy and drunkenness and orgies and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. And then he says this, but the fruit or the outcome, the sign that you have the Spirit. And look at these. Love, joy. There's our happiness. We have joy, peace, forbearance, which is patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and, oh my goodness, even self-control. Which is interesting because if we gain self-control through the Spirit, then we don't struggle so much with our appetites. Against such thing, there is no law. He's like, guess what? They can't even make a law that'll stop you from being kind. They can't even make you a law that'll stop you from loving or stop you from being patient. No patient people in here. It's like there's no law anybody will ever write, but it'll make you so much happier. So let's talk about it. Here's a little zoom out from what Solomon said. He said, I know that there's nothing better than for people to be happy and do good while they live. And then he ties it back in. I didn't just make up the thing about happy and healthy are a lot of light in our appetites. I got it from Solomon. He said that they may each eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is a gift of God. And I'm like, thank you, Solomon. That sounds like a very good life. Maybe not a flashy life, maybe not a life that has 1 million followers, maybe not a life that even people will talk about when we're gone, because guess what? That's probably not going to happen. But a life of happiness and doing good, so that means no guilt, no pain from our past, forgiveness, mercy, eating and drinking. So he's like, and it's funny because this part here, like we go, of course, this bothered people through the years because they're like, no. If you're going to be good, if you're going to be healthy, if you're going to be happy, you're going to have to be on like in a monastery somewhere, like denying yourself. He's like, no. And that's what's so beautiful, and I can't wait to tell you what next week is about, because it's like so beautiful, the writings of Solomon's. Like Solomon sees this integrated happy life in Ecclesiastes where it's a gift of God just to live your life in happiness and peace and enjoying good food and good drink and relaxing at the end of the day and enjoying that you did a good job, whatever your life is like. Now, Paul said it this way, and I think these two are very, very tied together. And this is one of my favorite passages in the Bible. Not that I've always lived it out, but it's my goal as I get older to do that. Paul said to the people in Thessalonica, make it your ambition. He's going, here, Christians, here's the way you live. Make it your ambition to live a quiet life. You should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you, so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders, so that you cannot be dependent on anyone. Same idea. What if you could just be happy and quiet and maybe not have a hot take on everything that happens in the world that you have to share? But what if you could live a life where, and this is not going, hey, you should be, you should work with your hands. That means everybody should be in the trades. No. That's the same thing as people go, hey, you should just be keto if you're going to be healthy. No. That guy likes, that's fine. But that's not what working with your hands means. It means actually creating or doing something that has value to others. And that's what they understood then. So it might be being a coder and building something that's valuable. It might be being a mom and building kids that are valuable. It's so much more than just, oh, you've got to work with your hands. It's the idea that you are creating something. That's what he's telling them. Like, don't be in the business of just taking or scheming or getting. Like, be in the business of creating. And then he said this, he said, then your daily life will win the respect of others. Now, it may not make you famous. It may not make you wealthy. He didn't say you'd have 1 million followers on Instagram, but he said then you would have respect. And you won't be dependent on anyone. And boy, is that a great place to be in life, isn't it? Because when it all sort of shuts down or it goes away or there's a riot, I can't go there, like, that's important. Or I was talking to the 9:30 crowd, or you could just be really, really angry. I was thinking, like, a lot of times I get up here in the morning and you out there in live stream world, like, I get up and I go, hey, I'm going to try to sell people on an idea, and it's very different from what culture says, and it's very different from what you see on the news, and it's very different from what the president says or the governor says, like, oh, they've got their own plan, and I'm going, hey, I think you should do what Jesus says. But I feel good this morning because I think I'm the only person offering this. Not me personally. Don is offering you this. But the Bible, because I don't see anybody on TV or in government or in culture going, here's what you should be happy. Who's saying that now? It's like, here's who you should be angry at. You should be angry at you should be angry at the cops, or you should be angry at the rioters. You should be angry at the president, or you should be angry at the Congress. You should be angry, you should be angry at black people. You should be angry at white people. You should be angry at that chick with the cheesecake. And I'm like, I don't know why I like cheesecake. Like, I can sort of get that. But here's the thing. Like, everybody's telling you who to be angry about. And I like the idea from Scripture of going, I know that there's nothing better actually being happy and do good. So I want to pray with you. And I want to leave you with that. It's our first step. What if we can modify our lives in a way that we're being happy, actually? And we're going to talk about this in the future. Being happy doesn't mean you were just psyched all the time and everything is great, everything is awesome. That's, I think, the Lego song. That is not life. But there is a happy. It's sort of like healthy doesn't mean you're never, ever, going to do anything but be on the treadmill while you eat, like green smoothies. Like, no. But I want to pray with you, dear God. God, our heart hurts for our world because it's filled with hurting people. But God, we know that you have the answer. And thank you for Jesus Christ. There are times that I forget that you truly are the only answer that I have. sometimes I get sidetracked and I think I've got a plan or somebody else does. But once again, I come back to going, you are the Savior and the King, and thank you for that. But God, I pray for Action Church folks and anyone who's out there on the live stream. God, I pray for us as we join back here in this building. But God, I pray that we would be people that just resemble what we see in Scripture, people who are leading quiet lives and respectable lives. But most of all, God, I pray that people would be happy and not waste just an entire lifetime moving to the next thing to be angry about. God, help me to do that. Help us to watch what we put in our bodies, but also watch what we put in our heads. And God, help us with our appetites who seem to lead us in all the wrong directions. But God, we trust you. And God, we're so grateful to you. In your name we pray. Amen. One more thing. I think we got another song, and I'm excited about that. But we'll see you here next week. We're going to start out sort of like soft opening, and we're going to figure it out as we go. So, but I'm excited to even go. We need people to show up next week, and then we need to figure out who can cook and stuff, because we have everything to do, like breakfast outside for Father's Day. I was like, we have all the flat tops. We have, and so we need to figure that out during the week. But we'd like you to just start returning to this place, and we're going to keep the live stream going because you can gather here. We're so blessed. We kind of have, I think, the best of both worlds, because you can gather here anytime now because there's no restrictions on us in that way. But you never have to miss a sermon, whether you're traveling or you're working, because we're going to continue to live stream. But there's something about being in the building, not because it's a building, but in being around others that just helps us to grow. So we hope that you will, as the Bible says, take advantage of that. I think we're going to, I don't know how we do the switch. Mitch, are you turning the camera? But we're going to go with some more music. Thank you.
I signed a contract back. It was a hard one. It came from God's Son. I didn't know him. I didn't know what he could do. I didn't know him. But I've been saved now through and through. And the girl said, she told me, some people want to take away your life. Some people want to take away your love. Some people want to block the sun above. No, you don't let them cover you in fire and steam. You gotta be the one that you came to be, 'cause you're the only one that can ever see. And the angel sings, the angel sings, the angel says this thing. There's an answer to the pain you feel, and I know you want the cure. And you've been fighting for all your life, but the time is finally sure. So put your hand in the air, it all starts now. You've been given a space by his holy grace, with a crackle, boom, and pow, and the Spirit says, and I want you to know we're all here, looking for the same glowing light. And I want you to know we all feel the same thing tonight, and we all say, we all say now. Some people want to take your life away. Some people want to take away your love. Some people want to take away your heart. Some people want to block the sign above. But you don't gotta let them tell you who you're gonna be. No, you don't let them cover you in fire and steam. Cause the fool can't believe in the Father's dream. So the word of the angel comes in quiet dream.